nature, things of that 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 nature, things of that
You know, we should never say that we're going to be done for the day because odds are we're not, especially during transfer portal season. I'm your host, John Neighbors, alongside Andrew Ellis, as this is a Pot of the Nature transfer portal edition. So you know what that means. Arkansas gets another one from the transfer portal in the secondary at this point in time. It is safety Caleb Wooden, who is transferred from Auburn. And Andrew, I know that they're continuing to add pieces. 19, I believe, is what the official number that they're at this point in time. But we were talking a little bit before the show and before we started. You know, we could sit here and talk about him, and we will, about everything. But just getting a guy who's got a lot of experience and starting experience at another SEC school, that alone is at least pretty nice and pretty unique and kind of like a first right now for Arkansas. But adding a little bit to the secondary of the Razorback defense.
Yeah, it's nice to not have to list off a school that no one's ever heard of or be like, well, I know it was at a different level or whatever, so you'll have to hear me out. This is the guy that played at Auburn. Now, by the way, I should clarify, this isn't, Auburn the last few years has not necessarily been setting the standard for football success, but he's got just under 600 snaps worth of experience, a lot of which obviously came against SEC competition. He spent most of this season as a starter. According to the PFF logs, it seems like he lost his starting job around the 7-8 game of the year mark. Did not start the final 4 games of the year for them, but he is coming off of his highest graded game of the year, which came against Alabama. So there's something there. This is a guy that's interesting to me because he wasn't a super heralded high school recruit at all. Like, he was a 3-star, 85 overall type of guy on 24/7, which is typically the type of guy you see going to Arkansas, frankly. But then they burned his red shirt as a freshman at Auburn. They did. I guess that was the previous coaching staff who didn't care. So they were like, yeah, sure, we'll just play this true freshman in 6 games. He played 6 games and played 70 snaps or something like that, but they didn't preserve his red shirt. So they did the anti-Patrick Kudus. But then, in his second year at Auburn, he graded out really well on PFF. His PFF grade was a 76 overall, kind of emerged as a starter throughout the year for Auburn and looked like they had found a little bit of a diamond in the rough. He spends most of this year as a starter, ended up splitting some time down the stretch. But so again, this isn't like a guy that's going to change the trajectory of Arkansas's program. But what he is he's a guy that brings some experience at the SEC level. There's some familiarity there. He's a guy who's played football in the SEC at the defensive back spot, which is something last year Arkansas in the secondary went with a mindset of they just kind of brought in as many pieces as possible with Slaughter and Miguel Mitchell and Marquise Robinson, just kind of brought in as many guys as they could and said, we'll figure it out. It's kind of that way this year a little bit, but some of these pieces I feel pretty good about. The young kid from Cincinnati, I think, is a solid, promising piece. I like Quintavious Scandrett from Eastern Michigan. Wooden, I think, is a solid, competent, playable player, which is nice. And so, maybe a little bit, I think they did a little bit better job at rebuilding the secondary this year than they did last year. So overall, I say all that to say, I'm pretty pleased with this pickup. I think this is a solid one for Arkansas.
Yeah, you can't really you could have sit here and say, well, as long as we will get somebody who's of the level of a Jalen Catalon All-American, you're not going to have very much happiness if that's what you're expecting every single time. In so many cases, and especially in the secondary, it's about building depth. And I don't care what anybody says. We could sit here and really break down his game and say what he's good at, what he's not good at, whatever it is. But if you just told me that you're getting a guy in the secondary that's got experience and has started and has been a veteran, because I guess he's going to have one final year to play, if I'm not mistaken. Of course, I don't even know these days of how many years he's going to have, but he's been in the league in the SEC for 3 years. I'm taking him. I think it's a great thing, and it's not going to hurt anybody. It's not like, oh, you had to find this one position that was just getting decimated, and you needed somebody to step in right away and be this All-American. It's like, no, you just needed some depth. You needed to build some guys there. And I think Caleb Wooden is that player, which I also thought was pretty interesting and funny, because I saw a picture of him when I was typing in his name and all that, and saw that he was running with the ball against Arkansas on a big play with Isaac Tesla following him. I was like, when was this? But apparently he returned a fumble for a touchdown against Arkansas back in 2023 in that game in Fayetteville. So yeah, a little bit of a, he scored a touchdown in Donald W. Reynolds Razorback Stadium as a defensive player. So that can't
knows
hurt.
what the end zone feels like in Fayetteville. So some familiar territory. You can get something there. Yeah, I mean, look, we're not going to sit here with all these. We go live for as many transfer portal pickups as we can, and it's always tough because all the fan base is always like, "Is this going to be a game changer? Is this a guy that can really move the needle?" And these terms that we throw out. And so sometimes you just kind of have to take it for what it is. And again, like we said, it's a lot easier to do that when you have a guy who's actually coming from an SEC school, albeit a bad SEC team, but an SEC team nonetheless. And a guy that played at Auburn, which, like, one thing about Auburn, they always have talent. So the fact that he was able to get on the field and actually be a factor, he played a little over 200 snaps last year and played just under 300 this year. So like that's something to build on for sure. And again, I think with the position that Arkansas is in, you don't really, with how much help they needed in the secondary based on just the pass defense this past year and how much it struggled. Again, you don't really get to complain too much, and you don't get to be picky and be like, oh yeah, we can't find a use for this guy who was a fringe starter at Auburn. It's like, well, he can help Arkansas. Maybe it's only 1%. Maybe he won't end up even being a starter. But I think you use that term depth, and I think that's kind of what we're looking at here. And so all of a sudden now with this defensive back room, it's not like it's nobody. It's not going to blow anyone away. But at safety in particular, I think Arkansas has done a decent job replacing. I mean, Jaden Johnson is a guy that spent 4 years at Arkansas. He's another guy who I think would qualify under that reason of like not a game changer, but a guy who can play a ton of snaps for you. That's what Jaden Johnson did for Arkansas. So they needed as many guys to replace some of that stability and that production as possible. And I think Caleb Wooden can certainly do that. And we'll see. Maybe Arkansas is able to get something more out of his skill set that maybe Auburn wasn't able to. We'll see what Marcus Woodson can do with his talents. And we'll see maybe if Arkansas brings in a new DB coach, if he has any factor there. But overall, I think this is a position of need for Arkansas. They needed to address the secondary. They've done that in the portal. We'll see if it's enough, if it really turns this group around. But in terms of just replacing what Arkansas lost, I think they've filled some holes, and there's a little bit less work to do in the secondary than there was maybe a couple weeks ago.
It's going to sound very cliche, but it's true. It's like Arkansas, they didn't get worse by adding Caleb Wood, and they got better. Like, I mean, whether it's marginally or not, they got better in the secondary and better at the safety position. And it's also a position that, honestly, since Jalen Catalon, dealt with his injury, I guess 2021 was really had him, or even 2020, safety's been problematic. There's been times it's been all right, but it's still had its issues. But still, yeah, this is a guy that is going to be able to add a little piece there. And according to 24/7 Sports too, this is where people are probably going to see this and be like, oh my gosh. But apparently he chose Arkansas over Middle Tennessee State. And some people are going to be, oh, geez, is that the options? Well, take it into consideration, because when he went to Auburn, he was recruited by Derek Mason, who was the defensive coordinator there. And Derek Mason is now over at Middle Tennessee State. So that's the connection there as to why there may have been a reason why he wanted to go to Middle Tennessee State. But decided to choose Arkansas. And now at this point in time, Andrew, if we're just looking at all the secondary players, not only do you have Caleb Wooden, but you also add in the top JUCO cornerback in Keyshawn David. How you say it? Davila,
I feel like is what we're going with.
We'll go with that. Jordan Young and then Connie Walker. So you got a guy who's the number one JUCO player coming out of in the secondary. You got a guy who played and contributed over at Cincinnati. You got another guy with Connie Walker at Oklahoma, and now you got a guy at Auburn. So I think, position groups, they've done better in some regards than others, but I think in the secondary, they've done a pretty good job. And are they going to be just as good, if not better? Time will tell. But I like what they've done, and I can't wait to see what the secondary looks like through spring brawl and heading into next season.
Yeah, and just to give a little more context for the fans that want to know if this is a game changer or not. According to On3, this is a 3-star transfer portal pickup and 86 overall. He is the number 654 player in the portal and the number 53 safety. While neither of those numbers will really sound great, we got to take into account there's like a billion players in the portal. So I know 653 is not great, but that's about where Isaiah Satania is ranked. I know he was in that 500 range. There's a lot of really good players in the portal, and so that number might sound a little weird. And again, I can't remember who it was that brought it up. Oh, it was Vids from me, a legend in the chat. He says, people forget we are playing Moneyball. Nobody's going to be a needle mover in terms of excitement. This is true. And I mean, Moneyball is probably mean, but it's also accurate. Like it's kind of what Arkansas is doing here. And so I think this is a piece that, like, whether or not he ends up being a game changer or not, it's not like Arkansas broke the bank to get him. And so I think, with the situation Arkansas is in, you got to bring in as much talent and as much depth as possible. And one thing I keep coming back to with Wooden is I mentioned he wasn't a super highly regarded recruit. And so the fact that he was able to get on the field so early at Auburn tells me there's at least something, whether maybe he's just mentally a super sharp kid, maybe he's super smart, maybe he has a great work ethic. But like, that's notable to me. The fact that someone who is a 3-star 85 overall was pretty much starting at Auburn in his second year on campus and then into his third year. Like, there's something there. And then maybe he's just the Hudson Clark veteran leadership replacement. But again, like you said, he's going to help Arkansas. He makes Arkansas better. Will it be 1%? Will it be 10%? Will it be 20? I don't know. But I think with Arkansas, like, again, you don't get to be picky. Bring in as much talent as you can. See what you can make work with it. See if Marcus Woodson can make something shake. And another thing I'd say is that Travis Williams has kind of shown in the last couple off seasons that it doesn't really, like, he kind of will let some of these guys walk and just kind of replace them with whoever he can. I mean, Steven Dix, they literally just messaged him on Twitter and were like, you want to play at Arkansas? And he was like, sure. Ended up being a pretty good linebacker. So that's kind of the way this coaching staff views it, is like, they can take guys who might not seem like game changers on paper, and they think they can find use for them. And we'll see if Arkansas is able to do it with Wooden.
Yeah, so right now, again, we mentioned a few of the players that they're adding in as far as the safety position. I also forgot Quintavious Scandrett. Can't forget that guy's name as being another secondary player for Arkansas. But you still got Larry Worth coming back. Miguel Mitchell was a guy that got talked about a lot. So yeah, I think you're in a good spot. It's about maintaining that the health wise, and I think it was me and you, Andrew, and maybe Curtis on Inside Arkansas, or whether it's that or the portal. But thinking about how Arkansas under the Sam Pittman era in the secondary has always had one weird thing happen each year, like one major injury, one guy who just like Jerry Jacobs did, just bounces out and goes to the NFL, like whatever it is. They've had some issues there. And so I think the hope is that we'll see this year. Let's see what this whole group looks like and what it can, because I still think Marcus Woodson's one of the best coaches position wise on the team.
Yeah.
I like what he's done in recruiting, and I just want to see, without injuries, without any crazy crap, like, what does this look like and what will this unit look like this season? Hopefully that stays the case.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess, John, before we get out of here, we have to address, the chat wants to know.
Yeah.
Where is Curtis? Which, by the way, for anybody that's been paying attention, like, it's not like we all three have to be on every single piece of content, especially when it's these spur of the moment transfer portal editions. Like, it's usually just scrambling. And Curtis, I feel like, has more than pulled his weight when it comes to showing up to spur of the moment things. So let Curtis enjoy like 10 minutes of just maybe focusing on something else, maybe doing some other basketball content. Like, he's paid his dues. I feel like it's time. It was time for us to step up.
Yeah, not only that, but again, folks, just to kind of let you look behind the curtain here, it's one of those deals to where when it happens, it's like, all right, who's available? And whoever's available, we come on here. Like, if somebody's gone or busy, it's like, all right, well, then the other two will handle it or whatever. So it's a group effort. It's a group effort all around. So, but I'm sure Curtis will give you a full breakdown of what he thinks of Caleb Wooden tomorrow.
Justin, pull up on Inside Arkansas Live tomorrow, and we will make sure Curtis gives you a good scouting report of Caleb Wooden for sure.
Yep, give him the full breakdowns there. Yeah, a few people like Kingsley saying, he's like, hey, you got that wood in right here.
That's good stuff. Yeah, we can make plenty of those jokes.
Yeah, there'll be plenty of those. Also, I'm not going to try to read what that is, but not an X Factor type guy, but really a solid get. And that's, again, what it needs to be viewed as. Just because here's another thing, Andrew. Anybody that's expecting, with the way that Arkansas's handled the portal and the guys that they've added, that then suddenly they're going to get this big time guy who's like, oh my gosh, that guy started at Georgia last year. That's not. You need to stop hoping for that. It's not going to happen. So this is what you got. This is what you're going with. This is we talked about on Inside Arkansas Live. This is the type of process you're trying to make. So let's see if it actually works out. That's the way it is.
Yeah, we spent 15 minutes saying what he basically eloquated in one sentence. Not an X Factor, but a solid get. That's what it is.
Yep, literally. A few more here, folks. Like Woo Pig says, I have no idea who these transfers are, but hopefully they make some noise this upcoming season. Yeah.
Okay. I get this to an extent where it's like, oh, never heard of him, so he must not be good. But also, like, are y'all very familiar with like the two deep of like every school in the country where like hell, like I didn't really know for sure who Matt Landers was when Arkansas landed him, but then I quickly did some research. Oh, he played at Georgia. Oh, he had a really good year at Toledo. Like, okay, he can help. Like, there's a lot of guys that like we haven't heard of. Hell, there's players that I don't know their name in the portal right now who were like 1,000-yard rushers probably at their school. That like just because we don't know them. Because I mean, we're Arkansas fans. Of course, we don't know them. I wasn't tapped in with what Auburn's two deep was looking like going into the season, so I wasn't familiar with them. But it doesn't mean that these guys can't be solid.
Yeah, same thing. It's like, I mean, we have plenty of examples, like an Andrew Armstrong, the guy who came from Texas A&M Commerce. It's like, how are you going to know about all that? Come on now, it's all different. Fids for me says, "Hey, are we getting bombastic?" So yeah.
We are. And here's what's funny: the timing could not have worked out more flawlessly. I literally finished recording it, like it's already in the chamber. Finished recording and was about to upload it, and then this news happens. I was like, well, maybe I shouldn't upload that, but it will be here. I guess I'll probably give it an hour or so to kind of simmer. But everyone who's watching this better be tapped in on that bombastic because it's a banger.
Yeah, well, you don't even have to say what time it's coming out because all you people out there should already be subscribed to Inside Arkansas and have the bell hit, so that way you'll be notified as soon as it happens. So, but yeah, I mean, anything else, Andrew, you want to add as far as this goes and everything?
Woo damn pig. That's all I got to say, John, is woo damn pig.
turn that damn jukebox on and yeah, coach, or all the other sayings that happen.
Yeah, coach is a good one. I like that.
Yeah, let's do that. So, but hey, appreciate everybody watching in. Be sure to subscribe on Inside Arkansas. Hit that bell up in the YouTube side of things. That way you'll be notified anytime a portal pop happens, as well as check out our website, InsideArkansas.com, and also check out the Bombastic later today as well. So for Andrew Ellis, John Neighbors, same sports show, same sports channel. Whenever we see you guys next time, have a great rest of your day, everybody. We'll see you then.